Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. The relentlessness of the championship is not stopping there. Literally just now, all the championship games have concluded in midweek, and now I'm recording my next set of championship predictions. It's just constantly moving at a constant speed. There's no room to breathe. And yet again, guys, I encourage you to leave your score predictions, if you like, in the comments down below to score some more points to the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. It's going to take some weeks until I do an update. I might try and do an update with about 10 game weeks left just to compile lots of weeks together, but I am really caught up with stuff at the moment, so apologies for the lack of updates in the prediction league. It is still being thought about, but just need to eventually find the time to do it, and it will come, I can promise you that. But today we've got 12 massive games in the top and the bottom of the championship, which we do need to start predicting for. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please hit the subscribe button if you've not done so too. It really does help as we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. And please also share the channel too. All three of these things are free to do and they really help. But without any further ado, let's start predicting week 29 now in the championship. We start things off with Sheffield United going up against Hull City. Differing results from both of these sides in their midweek counterpart games. So Sheffield United were involved in a comeback win against Swansea City after falling behind pretty early on in that game. And it was an interesting challenge for Sheffield United to see if they had the tenacity to get themselves back into the game. And Harrison Burrows, the man in form at the moment, 3 goals in 2 games. He's really helped out Sheffield United in their last 2 games as of late. With Hull, they are still meandering, like they're still near regarding the drop zone at the position at the moment. Bit of a bitter pill to swallow for them, losing against QPR. Now, it's not the end of the world for them. They did sustain some late pressure to QPR scoring late on in that game, but unfortunately it wasn't enough and they were left too much to do with too little time left. Here I do think it's going to be a very interesting encounter. I think this one is going to be a much more intriguing contest. I think certainly the last time around it was a very comfortable Sheffield United win. I remember it quite vividly, and Hull were a bit all over the place in terms of their structure. I think here they're going to be a lot more prepared, but as a prediction, I think Sheffield United are on form at the moment. They've got a big opportunity with Leeds and Burnley playing against each other this weekend. Sheffield United could see themselves top of the championship, so they really need to prioritise this. And actually a win here would put pressure on Leeds and Burnley respectively for their game coming up on the Monday. I think I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Sheffield United. So I do think it's going to be a relatively comfortable win in the end with a clean sheet. Next we've got Luton and Millwall, and my goodness me, Luton are going to want to have a repeat of the previous result against Millwall because it will really do them a favour. So Luton, there's no mistake about it, their away form has not been great, and it unfortunately has looked like it's going to continue with Matt Bloomfield coming in. They had a game against Oxford where they took the lead twice, but defensively all over the place, and Oxford managed to pick up all 3 points in the end, beating Luton Town by 3 goals to 2. Now, Luton's 3 out of their 4 away points all season was actually against this Millwall side. A clean sheet away from home as well. It was a 1-0 victory, and it was a very nutter game, I like to call it. A bit of a tense one for Luton to deal with. With Millwall's point of view, their form has not been too great either. They're still awaiting their first league win since Alex Neil came in. It looked like that they had it in the bag in their last game when they went 2-0 up against Cardiff, but then ultimately 2 stoppage time goals for Cardiff in either half really put the nail in the coffin for Millwall. It ended up as a 2-2 draw where, in reflection, it's not the most end of the world result for these two sides, but ideally Millwall would have really wanted to get that first win with Alex Neil just to get a bit of unnecessary pressure off him at the moment. Now, this game is so unpredictable. It could really go either way. I could realistically see either one of these sides winning, and I can even see a draw as well. But For me, I'm kind of on the fence of this one. I can see either side picking up a result here. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw because ultimately I cannot decide an outcome for this game. I think it's actually really, really close. Both these sides are really struggling for form and confidence. And naturally, I think that's going to make it a bit of a scrappy game. And I think it will end up being a bit of a draw between those two sides. Next up, we've got Norwich versus Swansea. So both of these sides sustained a defeat in their midweek games, although both were playing the top three in the championship, so there's no disgrace with either one of them. Swansea put up a bit of a fight against Sheffield United and sustained them in some pressure, and actually I think did really well, especially in the first half, to dictate the ball in the way that they did. It was only in the second half when Sheffield United really started putting the pressure on them. Norwich were involved against Leeds. It was a 2-0 victory to Leeds in the end, and unfortunately didn't really leave too much of a challenge in the end, and the scoreline did look very, very comfortable for this Leeds United side. Here, however, I think will be a much better opportunity for Norwich to get something here. Although last time when they played Swansea, they lost against them by 1-0. And this was the time when Swansea actually weren't doing too well with their home form. So it was a good confidence boost that Swansea could get results at home. Norwich really need it more than ever. They're lingering in a mid-table position, not doing too great. But Swansea's form is not amazing either. 3 defeats and 4. Both of them are really going to want to have a win here. Prediction, honestly, I won't be surprised if it's a 1-goal margin, either or. I'm going to go for home advantage here, and I'm going to back the Canaries here by 2-1. I just sense that they might be able to get enough quality with them being at home. I think that might just carry them over the edge, although Swansea can certainly offer enough threats for themselves as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. So next up is Stoke versus Oxford. I, for one, am very interested to see the reception Gary Rowett is going to get returning to his formerly managed club. But he'll be feeling so much more comfortable than what Stoke City fans are going to be feeling in the moment, because he is on fire at the moment as Oxford manager. They just keep on winning games, and right now they are climbing up to the lower mid-table parts of the table. What an epic turnaround it has been. They're still yet to lose in the league since he's taken over. This is what you call a transformation and a managerial bounce. Stoke City, they've not been winning too many games since Mark Robins came in. They've made themselves hard to beat with a couple of draws, but they did lose in their last game against a relegation rival in Portsmouth. And because of that, Portsmouth have actually leapfrogged Stoke in the table. So the pressure really is going to be on them to see, can they pick themselves up and start getting some safety between them and the relegation zone, because they're not far away. It's only within a matter of points that Stoke could fall in that perilous position. Now, I'm actually a little bit more confident with Oxford getting a result, and I would not have believed that, but quite honestly, with the work that Gary Rowett is doing to Oxford, he's working miracles there, and honestly, he may really want a result just to give one to the Stoke City fans that really did hound him out when he did join Stoke City when they were first relegated from the Premier League. Now, as a prediction, it's tough. I'm not so confident with Oxford away from home as I am comparing them with their home form. They have drawn a couple of games since Gary Rowett has come in. I think this one could be another situation of that. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I'd be shocked if Stoke weren't up for this. They certainly will be wanting to try and get a good response from their poor performance against Portsmouth, and I do think they could offer some threats, but I think a draw realistically with how the teams are playing will be the result going into this game. Next up is Bristol City and Blackburn Rovers. Puzzling results for both sides, but for differing reasons. So for the home side, they were involved in a pretty crazy 2-2 draw against Sheffield Wednesday, and it was a result that I wasn't particularly expecting, but fair play to Bristol City. It was a game where they actually fell behind for the first half. They actually managed to get an equaliser, and actually they were meaning that they were behind in that game twice, and they still were able to get a draw out of it. So brilliant resilience for Bristol City to get the draw in the way that they did. Blackburn's form is taking a bit of a nosedive. Back-to-back defeats for them now, and they have lost at home against Coventry by 2-0. A very puzzling performance again from Blackburn, considering how strong they've been at home, and it's been their away form that's been their kryptonite this season. And with the fact that they're not really churning in the performances at the moment, they're going through a bit of a bad time. Bristol City at home have generally been really consistent. I think I've got to back Bristol City here as a prediction. I'll go for a 1-0 victory to Bristol City. I don't think there'll be many goals in this game, but I do think it will favour the home side based on their current run of form. We now have a massive, and I'm not even exaggerating, a massive game at the bottom of the Championship. It is Cardiff going up against Derby County. Both sides with differing results going into this weekend. So Cardiff's form has certainly taken a major, and I've got to say major improvement, because they're going through an unbeaten period at this moment of time, and they are looking really good to get out of the relegation zone. I mean, it is literally the two teams just above the relegation zone, Cardiff and Derby, 20th versus 21st. It could be likely that if any of them lose in this encounter, it will really put them down in the bottom three, and what a win would do for both of these sides would be gold dust, because it gives them a bit of breathing space between them and the bottom three. Cardiff, of course, drew against Millwall in spectacular fashion, a 97th minute equaliser, as I mentioned. Derby are the team out of form in the Championship. It is 5 defeats in a row, and actually 4 for 5 games they've lost, they failed to score. So not only are they losing games, but they're really struggling for goals. And as a prediction, I think I've got to back Cardiff here. Their last home game, I should say, was an amazing 3-0 win over their bitter rival Swansea. If they play anything like that, I think it's going to be a win again for Cardiff with Derby out of form. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Cardiff, and that will certainly ease some relegation fears for Cardiff if they can pull this result off. Next up is Coventry and Watford. Again, two very different results from both of these sides, and probably a bit of a shock result for both of them as well. So Coventry managed to get their second away win since Frank Lampard came in as manager, beating Blackburn by 2-0. Sims and Brandon Thomas Asante getting the goals for Coventry. I'm really glad that they're looking like they're getting a little bit of consistency now, and some positive consistency with Frank Lampard now. They're going through a bit of a good run themselves. Watford, they lost at home against Preston, and actually not too long ago they also lost at home against Cardiff. So Watford are slipping up in games that you don't expect them to slip up in, and as a result they've really looking a bit stagnated in the table at the moment, looking around that top 10 region, but just not looking like that they can close the gap and get into that top 6 place. If they want to be serious, Watford, about getting into the top 6, they need to pick up 3 points here, following the fact that we will get teams high up in the table playing against each other this weekend, so the gap can be breached. But here, Watford's away form hasn't been great. Coventry's home form has been generally good as a whole. But for some reason, I can see this ending as a draw. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think the most common prediction here might be a Coventry win based on how both teams are at the moment. But I just sense a little bit of a fight with Watford in this game. And I think it's just going to be interesting to see how Frank Lampard approaches this game. But I'm going to therefore go for a draw, 2-2 draw, because I think there'll be loads and loads of goals. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments. Next up, we've got Preston and Middlesbrough, both with a really good win in their midweek encounter. So Preston were involved in a win against Watford. Osmajic with the 2 goals for Preston, making a brilliant part of that Preston side at this moment of time. And Preston are looking okay. They're on 34 points now, so they've got a decent space between them and the bottom 3. Not safe yet, I would dare say. I think certainly if you can reach the 40-point mark, you will be looking pretty safe, I think, based on the current points per game return for the bottom 3. Middlesbrough managed to respond in a big way after losing disappointingly to Portsmouth in very testing circumstances. They were back at home turf and they beat West Brom by 2-0. It was certainly a good result for Middlesbrough, especially with the fact that Blackburn failed to win in their midweek game as well. So they've now got a little bit of breathing space between them and the chasing pack, which is really, really good for Middlesbrough. They want to be settled in that top 6 region. I think with how the top 4 have pulled away from the rest of the competition, Middlesbrough are kind of holding that burden of being the best of the rest at this moment of time. And it's really going to be important for them to maintain that consistency from the other sides trying to nick their spaces. Preston at home actually have been really good, pretty much for most of the season. And as a prediction, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Middlesbrough go from the highs of beating West Brom to go from the lows of losing to Preston, because I think they've got a problem with their away form now, Middlesbrough. They look like they had it nailed on at one point in the season, but now they are being really inconsistent on the road. And I'm going to go, actually, for a bit of a shock, a 2-1 victory to Preston. You know, I think I would have gone for an away win to Middlesbrough, but after seeing him for a couple of games now and getting their predictions so wrong, I need to accept the fact that Middlesbrough are just not as consistent as the top four in the Championship at this moment in time. And I think this game will prove that, personally, in my opinion. And with Osmajic and other Preston players being banging form, I think they can get 3 points here. Next, we've got QPR and Sheffield Wednesday. So both of them are right around in the top half of the Championship, doing reasonably well for themselves. So QPR were involved in their win against Hull, as I previously mentioned. So a brilliant win for QPR. And statistically, no side in the top half has actually picked up more points than QPR in the last 5 match weeks. That is impressive, and it's telling you that QPR are surging up the table, and they, I dare say, will start eyeing up those playoff positions if they can carry on with their form. Sheffield Wednesday, as I said, were involved in that bonkers draw against Bristol City. 2-2 it finished in the end, taking the lead twice, but also throwing it away in the way that they did as well. It's a bit disappointing for Sheffield Wednesday. I don't think it's particularly like them to do that, but certainly they'll be wanting to try and build a good response here. But with how QPR are going their way in the season, I can't ignore their brilliant run of form at the moment. And as a prediction, the easiest bet for me will be to predict QPR win. They're full of confidence at the moment. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to QPR, but I do think it will be a very close one because I do think Sheffield Wednesday have been decent themselves. So it will be an interesting challenge for QPR. I think it's safe to say we need to spare a thought of any Plymouth fan watching at the moment, because it's been a very, very tough time for Plymouth. I mean, their FA Cup glory was the one shining light that they have had since Muslic has come in, because unfortunately for them, their results have just not transcended onto the pitch, and they lost 5-0 in their last game against Burnley. I mean, it was 5-0 at half time. Burnley could have been ruthless second half. They weren't in the end, much to Plymouth's relief. Sunderland themselves were involved in a win against Derby, albeit having one of the most bizarre disallowed goals I think I've ever seen in the Championship or any EFL game. And I'll take it because it meant a correct score for my predictions, but I was gutted for Isidore himself. He was denied his goal in the end for that regard there. But I do think with this game, Sunderland are the clear outright favourites here. But I don't think it will be a really big scoreline. I think Plymouth will make it a priority to try and be defensively tough to break down. And you must not forget, Plymouth did beat Sunderland in their place at Home Park. They were the first team to defeat Sunderland all season. So they would love nothing more to do the double over Sunderland, because not many teams have been able to beat Sunderland this year. But as a prediction, I think I'm going to go 2-0 Sunderland. I'm quite confident that they will be relatively comfortable with this game. Next up, we've got West Brom and Portsmouth. So, a bit of a tough one, and for West Brom, losing to Middlesbrough in the way that they did, it means they do kind of reach a bit of a new low in terms of their position in the table. They are struggling now to accrue enough consistency to keep up with the chasing pack in the playoff. They were in the playoffs actually before Mowbray came in, but now they've slid right back out of it, and it's going to be quite difficult for them to recoup that momentum. Portsmouth have had a new lease of life, especially at their home games. So they've won back-to-back games. Both of them have been at home. Both have been by sort of comfortable-ish scorelines. Home wins, but no clean sheets in those games. So defensively, I still think there's something to work on for Portsmouth, but they're scoring plenty of goals when they need to in their home ground. Away from home, I've got a bit more concerns. And I do think this is a really glorious opportunity for West Brom to see if they can make up some ground and try and climb back up into the playoffs. As I said, we've got teams high up in the table playing against each other, and it could be a big opportunity for West Brom to make some ground. Prediction, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to West Brom. Portsmouth, as I say, I think will prioritise being defensively sound, like I think Plymouth will be against Sunderland, but I think Portsmouth will have their odd moments of threat, but I think West Brom, with them being at home and the options that they got, I think they've got enough attacking options to put Portsmouth to the sword. So here we go, guys. This is the game you've been waiting for. Burnley versus Leeds. You've got the best defence in the league against the best attack in the league. Who knows? Who knows what will happen in this game? Now, I've been so impressed with Burnley. Clean sheets like you wouldn't believe. They are still only conceding 9 goals at game week 28. That is insane. I cannot exaggerate and find enough words to describe how amazing that is. You know, on average, they're conceding 1 goal every 3 games. That is so incredibly rare to keep that consistency throughout. Leeds have certainly not got that record, but Leeds are chugging it along and still actually getting some goals and are actually keeping clean sheets themselves. You know, so they're doing rather well in that regard. They've done recently in their recent game against Norwich, managing to beat them by 2-0. Solomon actually getting another goal. That's 2 games in a row where Solomon has scored as well. You know, and clean sheets against Sheffield Wednesday and, of course, Norwich, you know, are not easy feat for Leeds. So I do think it's going to be an interesting one. A 0-0 draw wouldn't surprise me. But I really do think one of these teams needs to really go for it. I actually wouldn't be surprised if Leeds score first. But I think Burnley could salvage a point. I'm going to go 1-1. That'll be the 10th goal that Burnley have conceded. If you remember the reverse fixture, it was actually Burnley who picked up all 3 points against Leeds. It was Leeds' first home defeat of the season. And if you remember last season, they were so incredible at Ellen Road. It was their first home defeat in quite a while. It really, really was. So Burnley did something pretty amazing there, and it was definitely one of Scott Parker's finest victories as Burnley manager. He definitely would be wanting to do it again here, but I just think Leeds will be strong enough to hold out for a point. Let me know what you think though of this crunch game in the comments down below. Wouldn't be surprised if I see all matter of different predictions. Okay guys, that wraps it up for my week 29 score predictions, amazingly. So we've nearly made it to game week 30, which is just downright scary. It really, really is. So in terms of future championship games we've got to think about, so there's one random midweek game with Portsmouth and Millwall, I believe. I think this was the game that was postponed due to the floodlight fault at Fratton Park. So this will be the last game in hand to catch up on, but then that kind of goes again, because then the next week is FA Cup weekend, if I'm right in saying. So you have game week 30, and then it's the week after that, when it's FA Cup weekend. We've got a couple of games played in midweek, some in the weekend. I think 2 to 3 are postponed at a later date. You know, it's all pretty crazy, and then 32, 33, 34, 35 will naturally be a little bit more normal, and you'll get the odd game in hand integrated later in that week. So it's all madness. Lots and lots and lots of football, but I'm not complaining. Thank you guys so much for watching again. Please do hit the like button if you've not done so. Please hit the subscribe button too, and please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw in this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.